In the shadow of a rapidly evolving political landscape, the American public finds itself grappling with an increasingly concentrated and corrupt capitalist system that has far-reaching implications for everyday life. As highlighted by Robert Kuttner in a recent article for The American Prospect, the intertwining of corporate power and political complacency risks leaving the electorate disillusioned and vulnerable to demagogues who exploit these very frustrations. Kuttner's analysis paints a stark picture of American capitalism over the last few decades, illustrating how major sectors such as banking, healthcare, and technology have succumbed to a troubling trend of consolidation. This phenomenon, often referred to as roll-ups, sees companies absorbed by larger entities, stifling competition, driving up prices, and ultimately disadvantaging consumers and workers alike. The consequences of this corporate concentration are not just abstract economic theories. They manifest in the lives of ordinary Americans who face deteriorating services, skyrocketing costs, and an increasingly opaque system that seems to operate beyond their reach. Despite efforts from figures like Lina, chair of the Federal Trade Commission, and Jonathan Kanter, head of the Justice Department's Antitrust Division, who have tried to revitalize antitrust enforcement, the lack of a cohesive narrative from the Democratic Party has rendered these initiatives largely ineffective. Kuttner criticizes the Democrats for failing to articulate a clear critique of this corrupted capitalism, allowing a talented demagogue like Donald Trump to capitalize on public disenchantment by redirecting anger toward marginalized groups rather than addressing the systemic issues at hand. The Democrats have failed to use the Biden interlude to articulate a general critique of corrupted capitalism and its impact on ordinary people, Kuttner argues, pointing out that without a unifying ideology, voters perceive both major parties as part of an establishment that is out of touch with their struggles. This perception is reinforced by the troubling reality that many Democrats are complicit in the very corruption they seek to criticize. The opacity of corporate practices further complicates the public's ability to connect the dots between these systemic issues and their own experiences. Kuttner notes that while occasional scandals like the violent incidents related to healthcare executives or the backlash against airline monopolies can spur brief moments of public outcry, they often do not result in sustained political engagement or reform. The complexities of healthcare consolidation and private equity's pervasive influence remain largely hidden from view, leaving the electorate frustrated but uncertain about the root causes of their dissatisfaction. In response to this environment, some Democrats, such as Senator Elizabeth Warren, are attempting to introduce meaningful legislative changes. Warren's Accountable Capitalism Act proposes significant reforms, including requiring large corporations to obtain federal charters and mandating employee representation on boards of directors. However, Kuttner laments that such proposals remain on the fringes of party discourse rather than forming the core of a robust opposition narrative. The fact that Warren's initiatives attract only limited support underscores the challenge of breaking the cycle of corruption that has ensnared many politicians across party lines. As the Democratic Party continues to navigate its identity and strategy in the wake of recent electoral defeats, Kuttner warns of the dire consequences of failing to seize this moment for reform. He acknowledges the inherent difficulties in overhauling a convoluted system, particularly in areas like healthcare where vested interests have entrenched themselves. Yet he believes that even incremental reforms can lay the groundwork for more transformative changes, empowering the party to reclaim its narrative and resonate with voters. The lack of visible leadership within the party poses another significant challenge. Kuttner reflects on how political figures who have not held public office, like Ben Wickler, the chair of the Wisconsin Democratic Party, are emerging as more appealing candidates than established politicians. This trend reflects a broader yearning for authenticity and effective advocacy in a time when populism is on the rise, be it genuine or manufactured. As the 2024 elections loom, Kuttner emphasizes the need for the Democratic Party to articulate the impacts of concentrated capitalism on the lives of ordinary citizens. He warns that without a coherent message that addresses economic inequality and corporate corruption, Democrats risk falling prey to the very forces they seek to oppose. The future of American democracy may hinge on whether a true opposition party can emerge from the shadows of complacency and articulate a vision that resonates with the electorate's lived experiences and aspirations. The coming months will be critical as the party must decide whether to embrace genuine economic populism or continue down a path that may ultimately lead to further disillusionment and division. In a significant move to address the phenomenon of debanking in the United States, the Senate Banking Committee convened on February 5, 2025 to investigate its real impacts on individuals and communities. The hearing, titled Investigating the Real Impacts of Debanking in America, brought together a panel of experts, each contributing unique insights into the implications of financial exclusion and the broader dynamics at play in the banking sector. Debanking, defined as the practice of banks terminating or refusing to provide services to certain individuals or businesses, has become an increasingly contentious issue, particularly for those in marginalized communities and industries deemed high risk. Chairman Tim Scott RSC opened the session by emphasizing the need for a thorough examination of how these banking practices affect economic opportunities, saying, "Our goal is to ensure that all Americans have fair access to financial services and are not unjustly excluded from the banking system." The panel included notable figures such as Nathan McCauley, co-founder and CEO of Anchorage Digital, and Mike Ring, CEO of Old Glory Bank, who shared their experiences and perspectives on the evolving landscape of banking and finance. McCauley highlighted the growing reliance on digital currencies and decentralized finance, suggesting that traditional banking models may not be equipped to handle the complexities introduced by these innovations. "We must adapt our regulatory frameworks to accommodate new technologies while still protecting consumers," he stated. Stephen Gannon, a partner at Davis Wright Tremaine LLP, provided a legal perspective on the implications of debanking. He pointed out that while banks have the right to choose their customers, blanket exclusions based on industry affiliation can lead to systemic inequalities. This practice not only harms businesses but also stifles innovation and economic growth, Gannon noted, urging lawmakers to consider the long-term consequences of such exclusionary practices. Aaron Klein, a senior fellow in economic studies at the Brookings Institution, underscored the broader economic impacts of debanking, particularly on small businesses and entrepreneurs in underserved communities. "Access to banking is fundamental to economic empowerment," Klein asserted. "When individuals are cut off from traditional financial services, it limits their ability to invest, grow their businesses, and ultimately contribute to their local economies." The discussions during the hearing revealed a complex interplay of regulatory challenges, technological advancements, and socioeconomic factors that contribute to the rise of debanking. Lawmakers are grappling with how to balance the interests of financial institutions with the need for inclusive banking practices. The committee's findings may pave the way for potential regulatory reforms aimed at preventing unjust debanking practices and promoting equitable access to financial services. As the hearing concluded, it was clear that the issue of debanking raises critical questions about the future of banking in America. The Senate Banking Committee's investigation is poised to shed light on these challenges, potentially leading to legislative measures that ensure all Americans, regardless of their economic background, have access to essential banking services. The outcomes of this inquiry could significantly influence the regulatory landscape of the financial sector, setting the stage for a more inclusive future in American finance. With the debate around debanking intensifying, stakeholders from various sectors will be closely monitoring the developments arising from this crucial investigation. In an increasingly polarized political landscape, the U.S. House of Representatives is experiencing a tumultuous period as it grapples with a crowded field of candidates vying for the District 3 House seat recently vacated by the departure of Representative Rudman. With 9 candidates now officially qualified to run, this race is set to become one of the most closely watched contests in the upcoming election cycle. The implications of this contest extend beyond local politics, as it could significantly impact the balance of power within a narrowly divided House. As the political atmosphere heats up, voters are being presented with a diverse array of candidates, each bringing unique perspectives and proposals to the table. The sheer number of contenders reflects a robust interest in the district and a desire for representation that resonates with constituents. The intense competition may stir debate on crucial issues ranging from economic policy to social justice as candidates vie for the support of a politically engaged electorate. Meanwhile, broader issues are unfolding in Congress as Senate Republicans prepare to advance critical components of President Trump's agenda while the House appears stalled on a budget reconciliation plan. This development is particularly notable as it illustrates the challenges facing Republican leadership in both chambers. Senator Lindsey Graham emphasized the urgency for the Senate to act, stating, "It's time for the Senate to move." His comments come amidst frustrations regarding the pace at which the House is progressing on a legislative package that aims to bolster border security, extend tax cuts, and address the national debt. The budget reconciliation process, which allows for expedited legislative measures, is currently in limbo due to internal disagreements among House Republicans. This has led to a sense of urgency within the Senate, where Graham is advocating for a targeted approach to border security funding. He highlighted the need for one big beautiful bill but cautioned against its complexity, suggesting that a simpler, more focused strategy is necessary to ensure the timely implementation of Trump's policies. House Speaker Mike Johnson, however, remains optimistic about the House's ability to lead the legislative effort. He reassured reporters that the timeline for the single bill approach remains on track, with hopes to deliver the package to the president's desk by May. Johnson's commitment to maintaining the House's leadership in the legislative process underscores the tension between the two chambers and the differing strategies at play. As these political dynamics unfold, the implications for both local races and national policy are profound. The crowded field in District 3 is indicative of a broader trend of increased political engagement, while the legislative challenges in Congress highlight the complexities of governance in a divided polity. The outcomes of these developments will not only shape the immediate political landscape but also set the stage for future legislative battles as the nation prepares for the next electoral cycle. The coming months will be crucial as candidates' campaign policies are debated and the electorate navigates the intricate web of political priorities. In an era defined by contentious debates over free speech, education, and the role of institutions in shaping societal norms, the recent episode involving Ilya Shapiro, a prominent legal scholar, encapsulates the complex interplay of these themes. Shapiro, a senior fellow and director of constitutional studies at the Manhattan Institute, gained notoriety for a tweet that ignited a firestorm of controversy during his transition to Georgetown University Law Center. The incident, which he describes as a harrowing experience in his new book Lawless: The Miseducation of America's Elites, reflects broader concerns regarding cancel culture, academic freedom, and the ideological battles that now permeate legal education. During a candid discussion on the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, so to speak, podcast, Shapiro recounted the events leading up to his infamous tweet, where he expressed concerns over President Biden's commitment to appoint a black woman to the Supreme Court. "I was doomed scrolling Twitter, getting more and more upset," he recalled, ultimately leading to a statement that would quickly spiral out of control. The backlash was immediate and severe, prompting protests and calls for his dismissal from Georgetown before he even officially started his new role. Shapiro's experience serves as a microcosm of the challenges faced by academics today, particularly within law schools that are increasingly perceived as breeding grounds for ideological conformity rather than centers of rigorous debate and inquiry. The unraveling of law schools is part of a broader crisis in higher education, he asserts, pointing to the shift from education to activism and the abandonment of core missions related to open inquiry. He argues that the inability of institutions to protect free speech fundamentally undermines the principles of justice and democracy. As Shapiro navigated the fallout from his tweet, he emphasized the importance of the First Amendment and the necessity for legal education to embrace a diversity of views. "There is a perversion of ideology," he noted, referencing the rise of critical theory and the diminishing space for traditional legal reasoning in favor of progressive activism. This ideological shift has significant implications as law schools shape the next generation of legal professionals who will occupy influential roles across various sectors of society. In the context of these discussions, the U.S. Supreme Court has also come under scrutiny with growing concerns about its perceived politicization. In a recent opinion piece, Freya Draper highlighted a Gallup poll indicating that 58% of Americans disapprove of the court's handling of its duties, raising questions about its legitimacy. The nomination process for justices, inherently political due to presidential influence, has led to accusations of bias, particularly as conservative justices dominate the bench. This politicization, amplified by high-profile cases and controversial rulings, has further eroded public confidence in the court as an impartial arbiter of the law. The debate surrounding birthright citizenship, recently reignited by a federal judge's ruling against an executive order from former President Trump, illustrates the fraught landscape of immigration and citizenship in America. Judge Deborah Boardman's ruling reaffirmed the long-standing interpretation of the 14th Amendment, emphasizing that virtually every baby born on U.S. soil is a U.S. citizen upon birth. This ruling highlights the ongoing tensions around immigration policy and the legal interpretations that shape rights and citizenship in the nation. As we look to the future, the intertwining of cancel culture, the challenges of legal education, and the evolving role of the Supreme Court raises critical questions about the trajectory of American democracy. Will institutions recommit to the principles of free speech and open inquiry, or will they continue down a path of ideological conformity? The answers to these questions will significantly impact the fabric of American society and its legal institutions. With figures like Shapiro advocating for a return to merit-based discourse and the preservation of academic freedom, there is hope that a shift toward greater openness and tolerance for diverse viewpoints may be on the horizon. However, the road ahead remains fraught with challenges as the battle for the soul of American education and governance continues to unfold.